The gig suddenly grounded. I had not expected it so soon. We were on Samson already. We hung over our oars like wet rags, drained of all strength, but the chief hadn't finished with us yet. "Out!" he cried, and he leapt over the side. "We'll carry her across Samson and launch her again. On the other side, it's the only way we'll reach them. Come on, you beggars, be time to rest when it's done." So we tumbled over the side, lashed our oars again and lifted. The neck of Samson is just 100 yards or so across, but in the teeth of that gale it felt like a mile. More than once I stumbled and fell to my knees, but always there were strong hands grasping me and lifting me to my feet. "I can see 'em!" cried the chief. "Over on White Island, I can see 'em!" The chief was everywhere, lifting with us, bellowing behind us, clearing the way ahead of us. We reached the beach on the far side of Samson at last and ran the gig down over the pebbles until the sea took the weight of her from us. We unlashed the oars, pushed her out and piled in. "Pull!" he cried. "Pull for your children! Pull for your wives!" I have no children, I have no wife, but I pulled all the same. Instead, I pulled for Granny May, for mother and father, and for Billy, especially for Billy. It was no great distance across the narrow channel, but the seas were seething. A witch's brew of wind and tide and current took us, tossed us about at will. Under us the gig groaned and cried, but she held together. A thunderous wave reared up above us, a great green wall of water, and I thought we must go over. "Steady, steady," came the chief's voice, and even the wave seemed to obey him. I felt the boat rise and with the wave surge forward, and then we were surfing in towards the beach where we were dumped high and safe on the shingle of White Island. I climbed out and looked about me. I saw men staggering towards us. One of them was running ahead of the others. "Laura!" he cried. I knew the voice, and then I knew him. "Billy!" I said, taking his face in my hands to be sure, to be quite sure. "Is it you? Is it you, Billy?" "Thank God," he whispered. I have to pinch myself to believe it as I write it. Billy is back. Billy is safe. Billy is home. We hugged out there on White Island, and we cried and we laughed. On the way back to Briar, with the wind and the waves behind us, with new strength in our arms, the gig flew over the sea. We had rescued every man on board, and Billy had come home. I could have rowed that gig single-handed. They had hot baths ready all over the island. Billy sat there laughing in the tub in the kitchen with all of us around him and shivered the cold out of him. He was bigger, stronger, different somehow, but still Billy. We had hot soup, limpets again, but we didn't care, not now. I've never seen anyone as hungry. I've never seen mother glowing so, no father so motherly. Everyone's proud of me. I'm proud of me. Billy's too tired to talk much. He says his ship was called the Zanzibar. She was bound for New York from France. He was suddenly tired and mother took him up to bed. He'll tell us more tomorrow. I've just told Granny May that Billy's back home, but all she says is the turtle, the turtle. She's asleep again now. I'm so tired and I'm so happy. December 10th. When I woke up this morning, I thought yesterday must be a dream. I had to go into Billy's room to be sure it wasn't. He was still asleep. He sleeps like a baby, he always did, with his finger alongside his nose. The wind has dropped. From his window, I watched the sea dancing in the morning light. Father was on his way out when I got downstairs, leaning on a stick and limping, but beaming at me. "The Zanzibar," he said. "She's still on the rocks." what's left of her, but she won't be there for long. We're going down to see what we can take off." Mother tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. I tried to go with him, but Mother wouldn't have it. She stood between me and the door, took hold of me and sat me down firmly. Later on, I went up Sampson Hill with Mother, leaving Billy and Granny May still asleep. Every boat from Briar was around White Island. The wreck was high on the rocks, only her prow hidden under the water, her sail in tatters. There were men crawling all over her like ants. As we watched, we saw the gig pulling slowly away from White Island. She was low in the water, and there was laughter across the sea. As the gig came into Rushy Bay below us, I saw something lashed to either side of her. Mother could not make out what it was, and neither could I. The crew shipped their oars some way from shore and let the gig come in slowly on her own. And then I saw the chief and old man Jenkins leaning over their side. They had knives in their hands and they were cutting at the ropes. "Cows," someone said. And at that moment, amid great splashing and whooping from the gig, 6 cows came out of the sea and came gambolling up the beach. "Well, I'll be beggared," said Mother. The crew leapt out after them and began a great cow chase all over Rushy Bay, Father waving his stick at everyone and shouting. In the end, it was difficult to see who was chasing who. We all ran down Sampson Bay to help and drove them up over the dunes to the green, where they settled at last to graze. Father, all breathless, leaned on his stick and shook his head. Well, would you believe it? But there was a lot more than cows on the Zanzibar. All afternoon the boats came back and forth loaded to the gunwales with timber, with corn, with brandy. Billy was up now, and along with all the others rescued sailors from the Zanzibar, he lent a hand. By this evening the beach on Rushy Bay was littered with piles of loot. Every family had their own pile, and we ferried it all back home in donkey carts. We'd prayed for a wreck, and a wreck had come. And what a wreck! That a miracle had happened, no one doubts. There is wood enough to rebuild our battered houses and to rebuild or replace our ruined boats. There are cows to give us milk, all the corn we need to feed us and them through the winter, and there'll be enough over for seed next spring, and brandy enough, Father says, to keep us all happy forever. Granny May insisted we get her up. She keeps touching Billy to check he's real. She took some soup, the first she'd eaten in weeks, and then she made us take her to Rushy Bay to see the wreck. She couldn't walk, so Billy and his friends from the Zanzibar pulled her across the island on the back of a cart, as the donkeys were still busy. She was beside me this evening at high tide when we heard the Zanzibar groan. Everyone was there to watch her go. We watched her sink slowly into the sea, her shredded sails whipping in the wind, waving at us. I waved back in silence. The crew took off their hats and crossed themselves. And one of them fell on his knees in the sand and thanked God. And then we all knelt with him, except Granny May, I noticed. We're staying. Everyone's staying. Billy's staying. He said so. He promised. He's crossed his heart and hoped to die. He's been all over the world. America, Ireland, France, Spain, Africa even. Imagine that. Africa. I asked about Joseph Hannibal. It seems he didn't quite turn out as Billy expected. He drank a lot, borrowed Billy's money and never gave it back. And when Billy asked for it, he threatened him. So Billy left the General Lee in New York and became cabin boy on the Zanzibar. It was the Zanzibar that had taken him all over the world. Billy says there are beautiful places in the world, wonders you wouldn't believe unless you saw them with your own eyes. But that there's nowhere else in the world quite like Scilly. Nowhere like home. I told him I knew that already, and Father said there's some things you've got to find out for yourself, and he and Billy smiled at each other. December 24th. I'm milking the Zanzibar cows, and with Billy too. There are 3 of the 6 are in milk, and we think the others may be in calf. Let's hope. Everyone had most of what they want off the wreck. There's been some grumbles, of course, but it's been fair shares. We've got the cows because we're the only ones who know how to handle them. We've got some corn too, everyone did. We've rebuilt the cowshed just as it was. Granny May has enough for her roof. There's timber stacked up in the gardens all over the islands. There's boats being mended, roofs going on. Everyone everywhere is hammering and sawing. Briar is alive again. Granny May will probably be with us until the spring, till her house is ready. She's the same now as she ever was, scuttling about the place and muttering to herself. Sometimes I think she is the mad old stick everyone says she is. She keeps telling me it wasn't God that brought the wreck, that brought Billy back to us. It was the turtle. She rambles on and on about how there's no such thing as a miracle. If something happens, then something has made it happen. Law of nature, she says. We saved the turtle, and the turtle saved us. It's that simple. You get what you deserve in this world, she says. I don't know that she's right. I've told Billy all about the turtle. He says if he'd found it, he'd have eaten it. But he wouldn't have, he's just saying that. We talk and we talk. We've hardly stopped talking since he came back. I've heard his stories over and over again, but I want to hear them. I know them so well, it's as if I was with him all the time he was away, as if I've been to America and Africa, as if I've seen for myself the great cities and the deserts that go on forever, and icebergs and mountains that reach up and touch the sky. The crew of the Zanzibar left from the quay this evening. We were there to wave them off. Everyone hugged. They were all so happy to be alive and so grateful to us for saving them. Since he's been back, Billy hasn't had a crossword with Mother and Father, and Mother is my mother again. December the 25th, Christmas Day. It seems Granny May might have been right after all. I was with Billy cleaning out the cowshed after church when he called me outside. Everyone seemed to be running down towards Green Bay, and there was a crowd gathered down on the beach. So we left everything and ran. We met Mother and Granny May coming out of the house. There's been a dead turtle washed up, said Mother. Granny May looked at me, her eyes full of tears. We had to push through the crowd. People were laughing, and I hated them for that. He was covered in sand and seaweed, and they were all trying to roll him over, but he was too heavy even for them. Then I looked again. It was a turtle, all right, but it wasn't our turtle. It wasn't any turtle at all. It was painted bright green with yellow eyes and looked as if it had been carved out of wood. It was the figurehead off a ship. Billy crouched down beside it and brushed the sand off his face. That's off the Zanzibar, he said. Granny May was laughing through her tears. She took my hand and squeezed it. Now do you believe me, she said. She didn't need an answer. It's off our Billy's ship, she went on. Then it belongs to Billy, doesn't it? And no one argued with her. We'll call him Zanzibar and he can live in the garden. Let's get him home. So we heaved him up onto a car and trundled him home. All afternoon we scrubbed. A lot of his paint had come off in the sea, and he's a little bigger than our turtle, but his face is just the same, wizened, wrinkled and wise-like a 200-year-old man, and he smiles just the same too, gently. I'm looking out of my window as I write this. He looks as if he's trying to eat the grass. He won't, of course. He'll only eat jellyfish. Zanzibar is a good name for him. The right name, I think. On the last page, she had written in ink, in wobbly handwriting of an old lady, P.S. One last thing. I'm not leaving Zanzibar to anyone. I'm leaving him to everyone. So I want him put on the green so all the children of Briar can sit on him whenever they like. They can ride him whenever they like. He can be a horse, a dragon, a dolphin, an elephant, or even a leatherback turtle. As you know, your great Uncle Billy lived a good long life. When he died, I didn't know how I'd manage without him. But I did because I had to. Anyway, we're together again now. Laura Perryman, 1995. I sat there on the bed for some moments, looking at the last of Great Aunt Laura's drawings of Zanzibar on the green, gazing out to sea. Sitting astride him is a small girl. The wind is in her hair, and she's laughing out of sheer joy. From outside the window I heard peals of laughter. I leaned out. There must have been half a dozen little nieces and nephews down in the garden, clambering all over Zanzibar. The smallest of them was Catherine. Catherine, my youngest niece, was offering Zanzibar some grass and stroking his head between his eyes. Come on, Marzipan, she was saying, you'll like it. He won't eat it, I called down. He only eats jellyfish. She looked up at me, squinting in the sun. How'd you know? If you let me sit on him, I'll tell you. I'll tell you where Zanzibar came from and how he got here. Everything. All right, she said. So, sitting on Zanzibar in the evening sun, I read them Great Aunt Laura's diary from beginning to end. By the time I finished, the entire family was gathered round Zanzibar and listening. I closed the book. That's it, I said. No one spoke for some time. It was Catherine's idea that we should move Zanzibar right away. So we fetched Great Aunt Laura's rickety cart out of her shed, loaded up Zanzibar, hauled him along the rutty track to the green. I knew from that last drawing in the diary exactly where she wanted him put, and that's where we left him, gazing out to sea. When I looked back, there were gulls circling above him. Some had landed on his back, and one in his head. Catherine was running at them, waving her hands and shouting, "Shoo!" she cried, "Shoo!" They flew off protesting, and Catherine caught up. "Anyway, it doesn't matter, does it?" she said. "They can't eat him, can they? Marzipan's made of wood, isn't he?" "Zanzibar," I said. "He's called Zanzibar." "That's what I said," she replied, and skipped off after all of the others. The end. Oh, well, that didn't disappoint at all, did it? What a fantastic story. I told you that Briar was the most magical place on earth, and I wasn't lying, was I? That was absolutely wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. So, Rusty and I would like to thank you all for joining us every week and sharing stories with us, because we have really, really enjoyed doing that. And we hope that you all have a fantastic summer break and you manage to do lots of fun, exciting things. And we hope, really hope, we get back to school in September. And I think maybe we should get a uniform for Rusty, and maybe he could come to school now after sharing all these stories with you every week. What do you think? Anyway, have a great summer, everybody, and lots of love from Rusty and I. Bye-bye.